This will lead to unnecessary chaos, as it did during Superintendent Caselius' time as superintendent in Boston, according to multiple Boston public school officials who were interviewed for a profile by Boston Magazine. I'm going to read a brief passage about that reorganization article. Caselius issued a flurry of staffing directives that often went unannounced and unexplained. She implemented a hiring freeze and repeatedly reshuffled the organizational chart, according to 3 current and former BPS officials. By the fall, when students returned to school, BPS officials were having trouble keeping track of who reported to whom and what responsibilities belonged to each department. It was chaos, says a current BPS official. Everyone was going every which way without direction, without leadership. I hope Milwaukee is not going to be a repeat during this reorganization. MTEA has made several attempts to work through these issues. We have been turned down by the superintendent. In MPS, this reorganization process, 139 staff have had to reapply for the same job they have. Many of these jobs that service students with special needs. These are jobs that they have already proven to MPS that they're qualified for.
Ms. Walker-Henry, can you address it to the policy, please, that we're discussing tonight?
2.03?
Yes.
Sure. I said it before and I'll say it again. It doesn't make sense. It's a waste of resources for the HR department that is already stretched too thin to keep up with regular hiring during the school year. HR should be actively recruiting to fill vacancies. Instead, they will spend time re-interviewing employees they already have positions for and that they're already in. What this action does is signal that MPS will continue to live up to the reputation of running on fear and intimidation.
Thank you. Do members of the committee wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Herndon.
Thank you very much. For the most part, I approve of this. What I don't really like is under the item C, number 3. Number 2 and number 3.
Can I know what you're going to say, and there was a revised version that was uploaded, so those revisions aren't in there. The revised version is the old version. If you look online, there was a revised version uploaded today.
Okay.
That probably addresses.
See, I did homework.
You did. And you did it early, not an hour before the meeting.
Board's approval.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly.
Does that address your question?
I think
It's the old language.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm done.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Yes. Director Benoit.
I think I do have a comment. I mean, I'm concerned, I'm still concerned, and I said it that night, that I feel like we still have an awful lot of top-heavy in administration, especially at a time when we need more people in schools. There's an awful lot of like superintendents and a lot of big positions. And I know we're a big district, but I still have a lot of concerns, I guess. That's mine. I'm putting a lot of trust in you, and I really hope that what you're planning, it means that we're still going to be putting a lot more people in schools. I know you've said it a lot, and you've really you've promised me that the schools are going to come first and all of those things, but it just does make me very nervous that we have so many people with very big positions on this.
Administration, thank you.
Yep, Chair Zomber and Director Vanoy, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that concern. If we didn't have such a hole to dig out of, and the accountability at the district level, I think is the reason why we need these additional positions. Also, at the chief level, all of those positions, many of those positions are sitting with interims or vacant. And it's going to take a while for those new hires to get the big departments underneath them. And then, for instance, in the chief operations area, we are dealing with lead. We're going to be revamping our nutrition area. We are going to be looking at our IT systems as part of the overall overhaul from the operational audit. Our chief administrative officer used to have operations and also have the schools. Of course, our students are scoring at 9% proficient on the NAEP scores and 14% proficient on the forward. And so there is a lot of work to be done within the district. We also have on our finance area, the corrective action plan that we are responsible for and addressing, and the current lead issue that we are addressing as well. If we didn't have these major threats to the district and major risk to the district, I don't think I know I wouldn't have this much at the top. But I think that we absolutely need it for accountability and for streamlining and the alignment to make sure that people do understand reporting, that there are clear expectations within the district, and that people are held accountable.
Thank you. I have a follow-up. Do you have, or when can we expect to hear about, like, plans for filling the vacancies in the schools and, potential reduction of class sizes? I was looking at the list of vacancies in my district, and 74 teacher vacancies is huge. And that's not even the paraprofessionals and the other vacancies.
I would be happy to bring forward to the board, Chair Zomber, Director Vanoy, I would be happy to bring forward to the board a hiring plan with our HR team. As you know, we are going to be working to fill all of the positions that are in this realignment and the restructuring. We have timelines that we have put out and shared with our teams. And so that's that. But there is the regular hiring as well that we need to do. And I'm monitoring that weekly and looking at that, particularly going to be doing some new initiatives with our HR team to recruit, to make sure that we are filling those vacancies and that that's top notch. I think I've been pretty clear that having a permanent, caring, and competent teacher in every single classroom this fall is my number one goal. And I'm going to implore upon our principals that it's their number one goal too. So we're going to be watching it over the next 2 months, making sure that we can deliver on that. And where we can't, then we will probably end up, like in past years, reassigning central office staff to be able to fill those vacancies, because our children deserve to have a permanently high-qualified teacher in their classroom.
Thank you. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. And as chair of AFP, I would be happy to talk about the hiring and the vacancies. For tonight's purposes, as it pertains to admin policy 2.03 administrative organizational plan, I move to approve the administration's recommendations.
Okay. There's no further discussion. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Vanoy?
Aye.
And President Zomber?
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 2 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 2.04, Superintendent's Cabinet. The recommendation is that the board approve Administrative Policy 2.04, Superintendent's Cabinet, as attached.
Sorry, would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Brenda Casselli, Superintendent. This evening, we're requesting your approval of Administrative Policy 2.04, Superintendent's Cabinet. The proposed changes are in alignment with the FY26 Administrative Organizational Plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any speaker slips on this item?
We have no speaker slips.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Jackson.
Yeah. So these are just those who report to you, not eliminated roles.
Chair Zomber and Director Jackson, this is just to match the chart.
Any follow-up?
And so there are some that I took out of the cabinet as well, because they report up to a different officer rather than reporting directly to me.
Gotcha.
Okay. Do other committee members have questions or wish to make comments? No? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran.
I move to approve administration's recommendation with respect to administrative policy 2.04 as attached.
Okay. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve Administrative Policy 2.04, Superintendent's Cabinet as attached, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Vanoy,
Aye.
and Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, item 3 is action on a request to approve Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention of Students. The recommendation is that the Board approve Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention of Students, as indicated in the attachments to this item.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber and members of the committee, Brenda Caselli, Superintendent, this evening we're requesting your approval of Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention of Students. I'm joined by Dr. Hill to review this policy update with you. Following the review, we would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Chair Zombo, members of the committee, I'm Dr. John Hill, Director of College Career Readiness. Tonight we are bringing the revisions to Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention. The revisions are in accordance with Act 20, which requires school districts, independent charter schools, and private schools receiving funds through the choice program to consider a student's reading ability when determining promotion from grade 3 to grade 4. Additions, as indicated by the underlined text, outline factors that should be considered when determining whether a student who did not successfully complete their personalized reading plan in grade 3 should be promoted. Those factors are located on page 2 of the policy. The revisions also address what factors should be considered for the following: students with incomplete reading plans, that section is located on page 2 as well. Exceptions to post-promotion requirements, which is located on page 3. Finally, mid-year enrollment transfers. That too is also located on page 3. The revisions were drafted by Neola and closely match the model promotion policy developed by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. This policy will go in effect for students in grade 3 in the 2025-26 school year. At this time, we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Do we have any speaker slips for this item?
We do not.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran.
I guess my question is just, since this so specifically references definitions from state law, how do we update it if changes are made to state law? I know we're making this a more regular feature of our policies and procedures to update them more frequently, but in the off chance that it gets put on a shelf, how do we feed the changes from state law back into this policy? Is there a method for that?
We're going to throw that one to Office of Board Governance, our Neola.
Thank you, Chair
Contact.
Zomber, Director O'Halloran, Dr. Owen Moore from OBG. Our Neola contract, one of the things that's so nice about it is they are constantly keeping an eye on the statutes and what's being updated, and also other legal cases around the state where they're just seeing patterns of things. And so they bring those policy updates to us quarterly and make sure that we're able to bring them to the board regularly.
Thank you.
Administration, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that? Did Office of Board Governance get it? Okay. Any other comments or questions? Vice President Herndon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have a question regarding the promotion requirements. How will we, or what are we planning to do to inform parents and get them more involved in that whole process to make sure that their child doesn't experience the promotion requirement deficit, if you will, have that happen to them? I know typically over the years there was movement against doing such a thing, which in a way is kind of like penalizing a child. So I would like to see something that would inform the community on a regular basis so that they are not blindsided when September comes and the child is not performing as they should.
Dr. Hill?
Director Herndon, Chair Zambor, members of the committee, it is our intent to do communication to all families about this process, as well as all staff that will be directly working with this process. This past year, we have been piloting personalized reading plans, and at the end of April, we had 99.3% of all students who would qualify for a personalized reading plan on a recorded personalized reading plan. So within the next couple weeks, we will finalize that process, and we will begin communication with families and teachers. So everybody is very clear about the expectations and the process moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? I just have, so one question about, it's more of like an informational item so if this was already drafted with Neola, is there another format that matches Neola that will be brought forward with the appropriate series of policies at a later date?
Yes, Chair Zomber, the policy was drafted to match our current one right now, and once it comes in that packet, it'll come back with the whole thing and be in that
Okay.
typical,
So we'll have another pass at this
yes, we will.
in the near future?
In the very near
Okay,
future.
thank you. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, do we have a motion? Director Jackson.
Yes, I move to approve the administrative recommendation as it relates to the action to approve the administrative policy 7.36 with the promotion and retention of students.
Okay, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Jackson's motion to approve the administration's recommendation with regards to Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention of Students, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Benoit.
Aye.
And Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 4 is action on a request to adopt revisions to Administrative Policy 8.02, Student Anti-Sexual Harassment. The recommendation is that the board approve revisions to Administrative Policy 8.02, non-discrimination on the basis of sex and education programs or activities as presented in the attachments to this item.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Brenda Caselli is superintendent. This evening, we're requesting your approval of Administrative Policy 8.02, Student Anti-Sexual Harassment. I'm joined by Nicole Coleman to review this policy update. Following the review, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Good evening, Director Zomber, members of the committee. I am Nicole Coleman, Manager 3, Student Services. And in accordance with Administrative Policy 2.11, every fifth year, the board and its designees shall revisit all of its policies, rules, and procedures to determine their coherence and appropriateness to the present mission of the district. The administration has reviewed Administrative Policy 8.02, Student Anti-Sexual Harassment, and made revisions to align it with Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, which prohibit discrimination based on sex in education programs and activities that receive federal and financial assistance. The federal law governing Title IX can be found in Title 34 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 106. The revisions to this policy were prepared in conjunction with Neola and reflect state and federal statutes. The policy includes key elements of the statute that MPS is responsible for implementing to ensure that we remain in compliance, and include the designation of a Title IX coordinator, adopting, publishing, and implementing grievance procedures, investigating and making a determination about alleged discrimination and harassment, and the maintenance of records of each complaint of sex discrimination and all materials used to provide training. At this time, I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And I just want to thank administration. I know this is a large policy, but it's really important. So thank you for all of your work getting this prepared for us. Do we have any speaker slips tonight?
We have no speaker slips.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Vanoy.
I move to approve the administration's recommendation. Do I have to say?
Madam Secretary, can you call the roll?
On Director Vanoy's motion to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Vanoy,
Aye.
and Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 5 is policy review, follow-up and possible action on Section 0000 Board Bylaws, Policy 0142.7, Orientation. The recommendation is that the board adopt the proposed revisions to Policy 0142.7, Orientation.
Sorry, would the administration please present the item?
I-
Oh, I'm sorry. Office of Board Governance, if I would read the script.
Thank you. This policy is coming back from our first batch of policies that had to do with board bylaws, and the ask from the board was to add a little bit more specificity into the board orientation, just to capture some of the things that had been highlighted in the past, and to speak to our new board members and get their feedback about what was important in the process and what they needed. And so with that, there are a few revisions to the policy, a little bit of addition there, and hopefully it better reflects those needs.
Thank you so much for taking the time to ask the new board members and make those revisions. Do any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Updated. Director Jackson.
Just a comment, just saying, I appreciate this. As I've already stated to new board members, they already have a leg up, being able to be aware and abreast of certain things that we were not abreast of in the past. So thank you thank you for moving forward with this.
Any other comments or questions? No? As a new board member, Director Vanoy, do you feel like it covers the things you wish you have or need?
I don't know.
Is it
any
hard?
better.
Sorry to put you on the spot. And I'll just,
Yes, I appreciated it very much, and I do feel prepared.
and I do think we're going to be doing more board governance trainings in the future as well, as part of the operational audit, and we can always add to this as things come up as we're working together in those retreats.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that I was hearing language over here. My apologies.
Mr. Chasen, do you have?
No, thank you, Chair Zomber. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. Just to make sure that there isn't any ambiguity or that we remove any that might exist, on page 1 of the policy, it's the paragraph that begins, each new board member shall be invited to meet with, and it cites the board president, the superintendent, the senior director. I'm interpreting that to mean the senior director of the Office of Accountability and Efficiency, and to the extent that if we could provide that clarity, if that is the intent, that would be well received. Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. Do we have a motion that includes Mr. Chasen's suggestion? Vice President Herndon.
I move that we accept the recommendation of administration related to policy bylaws 0142.7 and modify, how would I define that? Where it describes each new board member shall be invited to meet with the board president, superintendent, and the correction is at this point where it simply says senior director. And Madam Clerk, how would you like that changed?
Possibly to add of the Office of Accountability and Efficiency? Just the language of, after senior director, add the language of the Office of Accountability and
office.
Efficiency.
of accountability and efficiency.
Thank you. Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
And just for a clarification point, it would be to approve the Office of Board Governance recommendation rather than administration. So on Director Herndon's motion to adopt policy 0142.7, orientation as shown in the attachment and with the added language of the Office of Accountability and after Senior Director. Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Vanoy?
Aye.
And Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 6 is policy review, follow-up and possible action on Section 0000 Board Bylaws, Policy 0175.1 Board Travel. The recommendation is that the Board adopt the proposed revisions to Policy 0175.1 Board Travel.
Would the Office of Board Governance please present the item? Do you have any
Chair.
additional information to present?
Chair Zomber, members of the board, this is another policy that the board had requested come back with a little bit more specificity around board travel and some of the practices that we had but didn't quite have in policy.
Thank you. We don't have any speaker slips on this item.
We do not.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Jackson.
Yeah, so I know that travel is one out of state. I was suggesting two, reason being on the board, so we're considered part-time employees, so there's no tuition reimbursement that we can, have at our disposal. But with the travel, what I've learned thus far, and I fully take advantage of it, the amount of information that I've received in these seminars, going from different states and having different keynote speakers and other educators on different levels, I haven't been able to get that here at home when there's been local seminars. And I would definitely give much respect to WASB, but outside of that, locally, I haven't been able to engage to get a broad scale, especially dealing with our black and brown boys and girls of where they are right now academically. So for me, I would like to see 2 out of towns be done, or if that's possible, just so you can have a broader range, especially even once again for new board members. The amount of information that you're receiving here at home is great, but you got to travel to get a bigger scope because our district mirrors so many other districts as well. And that's the only reason why I propose with the second out-of-state travel.
Could I pass the gavel to make a comment? Director Herndon, would you take the gavel just for a moment?
I have the gavel.
The way I'm reading this policy, we can do more than one, but if you want to go on a second trip, it has to be approved by the full board. And as the person who now has to approve them, I have been thinking more about the budget and making sure that I would feel bad if I approved 2 for someone and then we ran out of budget money to approve 1 for another board member. So I do like that this request has to be made by the full body. That way it's not on me if, the full board can approve it together. And then there's that transparency. So I agree there might be instances where board members should potentially go on more than one trip. It puts me in a weird spot if we, I don't know, I like that the full board could be included in that discussion if that's okay.
So, okay, just to follow up, so how do,
The gavel back.
as we know, all board members don't take advantage of the travel, so there's money left. So how do we know when there's extra funds available for that board member to take another trip?
Office of Board Governance, can you share some insight?
Yeah, Chair Zomber and Director Jackson and members of the board. We budget for about the amount that would be 1 out-of-state and 1 in-state. if there was a request to, that would be part of the, I would imagine, part of the whole board looking to at what budget has been expended so far, what exists, and is there that possibility that somebody could use those funds that are there? Or even if there's funds outside of that that could be tapped into that maybe are available. So there's definitely opportunity to do that.
Okay.
Director Jackson, does that
No,
help
that
answer
answers
your
it.
question?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other comments or questions? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item?
I'll be the one since I'm
Director,
here.
go ahead, Director Jackson.
Absolutely. I approve the administration, Office of Board Governance, to approve Office of Board Governance with the bylaws of a policy with board travel, policy number 0175.1.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Jackson's motion to approve the Office of Board Governance recommendation regarding policy 0175.1 board travel as shown in the attachment, Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 7 is a work session on policy review, consideration of and possible action on Section 90000, Community Relations and Recreation. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
Thank you. This is the second of several work sessions that this committee will hold as we conduct a review of all district policies. We will begin by having a public comment period. Members of the public may comment on any policy or policies that are in the packet attached to this item. These are the only policies we are considering tonight. After the public comment period, the committee will go into a work session and no additional comments will be accepted. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
We do not have any speaker slips.
And Madam Secretary, can you just clarify, so we're going to go through the work session. I'll ask committee members if there are policies they wish to set aside. We'll keep note of that, but can you just clarify, can we deviate a little bit from Robert's rules? Could I just keep stack so that I can say the person's name for accessibility reasons so that people listening on the radio know who's speaking, but we can move a little bit more freely?
Yes, this is the goal of going into a work session, to kind of give that opportunity.
Okay, I like that. All right, so now we will move into our work session. I'll begin by asking committee members if there are policies from the packet they wish to set aside for separate consideration, and then I'll probably pass the gavel because I have some myself. Director O'Halloran.
9141, use of cameras and other recording devices in locker rooms.
Do other board members wish to set any aside? No? No?
I will say, if not
Yeah.
now, could we come back to it? Could we bring a policy to you later?
Yeah, and we'll have, if there's one that you're considering setting aside, you could also just set it aside and we can bring it back into another work session.
Okay. And I'm just speaking once again, not to say I'm speaking for you, but new board members as well, because understanding it's the
Yeah.
first process.
Yeah, and I mean, there's one that I don't really have a lot to discuss tonight, but I do want to set it aside because I think we need more time to look at it. So I'll be honest and transparent, I'm not prepared to make recommendations to it. It's one I think, we got to set aside. Director Jackson, do you have any you want to set aside? No? Okay, I'm going to pass the gavel, and I'm going to go through my notes and find the ones that I had brief questions about, and then there was one I definitely wanted to set aside.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Okay, may we set aside 9110 parent empowerment? Sorry. 9121, sports and special events news coverage. And then I did have a question about, I'd like to set aside 9141, school engagement councils. And then maybe I shouldn't chair this meeting because sorry. And then I got to find the last one, which was and someone might have it before me. It's the complaint process one. Okay, I also had Director O'Halloran's camera one, so maybe we had the same question. And then if anyone can find the one on comments before me, sorry, next time I will have these.
Chair Zomber, is it
Yep.
9130 on public requests, suggestions, or complaints?
Yes, that's it. Okay, those are the ones. Except now I didn't write them on my list. But, Madam Secretary, would you be able to just kind of go, help me out by telling me which policy we're going to next, and then we'll have a discussion?
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
just for a note too, I believe the one that Director O'Halloran was trying to note was 9151, not 914, on the
okay.
use of cameras. Yes? Just to clarify. Okay.
Okay.
So I believe the first one set aside then, if you want to do that.
All right, 9151, Director O'Halloran, did you have?
I guess I just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about, just seeing the line. The following recording devices will be permitted in the locker room and for the particular use described. I'm just wondering if we have had instances, and just, I guess, just in general, I feel a little apprehensive about the idea of recording devices in locker rooms regardless. So I was just hoping to have a conversation about that. So I guess my question, if it has to be a question, is do we anticipate actually having recording devices in locker rooms, or have we had any in the past? And if not, then I'm just curious why we have to enumerate the allowable permissions for the locker room, if that makes sense.
And I had the same question. Can I just add on to that a little bit? I think, and maybe this is just something we have to go back and clean up a little bit, or just take another pass at, because it does say you can't, there's restrictions on what could be recorded, and so I am wondering what are the instances where you could actually put a camera but can guarantee that you wouldn't accidentally capture those things that are prohibited under this policy. And then also, I think, because it says covert surveillance video may be used to investigate suspected illegal behavior by students. And then I was wondering, should we add or staff or anyone that violates school rules? So maybe this is just one that we could hold over. Superintendent Caselius?
I would agree, Chair Zomber, that this needs a little bit more attention, and I think we want to table it for now and come back to it. I'll have staff look at it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this one? No? Okay. Madam Secretary, can you remind us which policy we are going to look at next?
Policy set aside is 9110 on parent empowerment.
Okay, let me pull that one up.
This is just for airtime. to
Sorry,
send
thank you.
Community Relations and Recreation, Parents
is-
Empowerment.
Can you say the number again?
9110, Parent Empowerment, and this is based on current Administrative Policy 1.03.
Okay. I was just wondering if we could, oh geez, I have to organize my notes better so I can do this next time. Okay, can we skip this one and we'll come back to it? Sorry.
The next policy set aside is 9121, Sports and Sporting Events in the News, I believe, 9121.
And this one,
Sports and Special Events News Coverage.
I think the question I had around this was just if we could add live streaming to, can you say the number of this, for this one again?
9121, Sports and Special Events
It's
News
on
Coverage.
page 4.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's just broadcast by radio, television. I'm just thinking, like, now so many people live stream athletic events. Would it make sense to add live stream? Would anyone, so this is page 4, athletic contests and other school activities may be broadcast by radio, television, and we would just add or live stream. Ms. Chambers?
Director Zombor, members of the committee, the only question that I would ask is that we would take this one to Neola and clarify that live streaming would somehow confirm or be sure that it was our live streaming, that it wasn't extended to, Facebook or someone just recording and sending something. So I would just want to clarify that language on what live streaming would include.
I'm okay with that, if we want to hold over for Neola.
And can I just say then, if we are going to possibly revise the language, live stream or technology evolves so quickly that I don't want to paint us into a corner with like, okay, now we're addressing live streaming and next year there's something brand new. So if there's a way with attorneys and whomever who can workshop it so that it's not immediately outdated as soon as we approve it, that would be fantastic.
Are there any other questions or comments on this particular policy? Oh, Vice President Herndon.
Passing the gavel back. My question is, how would you control live streaming? Because everybody's walking around with a cell phone these days and doing Facebook Live and those sorts of things. I don't think we could control it. I think it's a good idea to have further conversation about it, don't get me wrong, but I just think that that's a way of life at this point for most of the young people and far too many adults.
Is this, can I, just a point of clarification, does this just refers to special events news coverage? So it's limiting the use of outside entities rather than individuals, if I'm understanding it correctly? So maybe it's not trying to control every single person who's sitting in the bleachers, but more so somebody with a license who is intending to share this with a broadcast audience.
Like a reporter going
Yeah.
Facebook Live on
Oh,
their-
okay. I guess in that
kind of
I
case,
think
yeah.
then it should
they
have
do.
really, really clear clarification. Otherwise, the kiddos and many parents are going to get offended and start something.
I think this one, go ahead.
Madam Chair, members, this policy is really centered around news organizations or other for-profit broadcasting entities. If they want to broadcast our athletic events, they need to obtain permission from the superintendent or the superintendent's designee.
Okay.
And particularly noticing too that the sponsorship must be approved.
Okay. Any other questions on this one?
No.
Madam Secretary, we could go back to the parent empowerment policy. I found my note on that.
Oh,
And I do
this
have one policy to address.
This one was set aside on the, so you would have to act on this one, 9121, the sports and special events, so you can
Oh, I'm
officially
sorry.
act to
Hold it over.
Hold it over, or,
Hold it over for Neola recommendation.
yep.
Okay. Could we go to 9110 on parent empowerment?
Yes, 9110, parent empowerment.
I just had I don't know, kind of just a thought that maybe there's a better way to write the process other than saying commit. It says, when we're saying the board commits to establishing written and formal procedures for hearing and resolving the complaints, to me, that felt a little like we're going to do it, but we don't have to do it. I don't know, I wanted something a little firmer there and see if we could maybe hold this one over, or we could say shall establish written and formal procedures for hearing and resolving the complaints and concerns of parents through the Parent Service Center in a timely manner. I just wanted, I thought it needed to be a little more firm than commits. We could just take action on that tonight, if anyone. We could just replace all of the commits to shall. Okay. Do we have to take action on that? What kind of action do we have to take? Like formal vote? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to change all of the commits to shall?
Sure.
Director Benoit?
I move
To adopt the policy and change them with.
adopt the policy and make the change.
Make the change from commit
From
to
commits to
shall.
shall.
Yes.
And then if you have that, Madam Secretary, is there another policy set aside? Otherwise, I think,
I'll call that one. I'll
Okay.
do the roll call for that one, and
Oh,
then.
thank you.
And then we'll do the balance of them at the end.
okay.
So on Director Benoit's motion to adopt the policy as presented in the attachment with the exception of changing the commits to shall, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Benoit.
Aye.
And Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, that motion passes. And then we are on 9141, School Engagement Councils.
Yes. Sorry, I will. 9141, engagement councils, yes. So under D, number 5, it says, training for school engagement council members will be provided annually by the District Advisory Council on the first Thursday in October. And then also there's, sorry, you know what? Actually, my question might have just answered that when I read it. But, so, that was not my question. That was just something I underlined. So it says, School Engagement Council shall, at the very bottom, G, evaluation and monitoring, School Engagement Council shall submit reports to the superintendent. The administration shall present a yearly report to the board on activities of school engagement councils. This was my question. I'm just wondering if we can specify the month so that it doesn't get lost. If we can say this month, the board will receive a report about activities of the school engagement councils. That was one of the questions that I had. And then it also said the superintendent under E for council liaison, the superintendent shall appoint a designee to oversee all councils and their operations. And this might be a question for Ms. Chambers. I'm kind of wondering, like, who is that now? I know Dr. Caselius will probably have ideas who that's going to be, but I'm just wondering, or maybe it wasn't in there now. So if someone from administration just wants to talk about who that will be or is currently.
President Zambor, members of the, Chair Zambor, members of the committee. Right now, I cannot tell you how the person was selected. They've been in place since my arrival, so it kind of has been. But moving forward, I am sure that Superintendent Cassellius is going to be more than happy to select who the person will be going forward. But how the current person was put in that position has been since my arrival, and I am not certain.
But there
if it
is a
was put-
position
yes.
currently. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's helpful. So,
Chair Zamber?
yes, Director I'm sorry, Superintendent Cassellius.
One of the things, Brenda Casselli, as superintendent, as you know, part of the org chart is creating this Office of Family and Community Engagement and, getting underneath our parent councils and their engagement and making sure that there's greater transparency around that, making sure that there's greater shared decision-making, and how we use our parent coordinators and also how we use our councils at our schools. And so I'm hoping to work with the PACE committee in working with Director Ferguson on designing that and what that looks like. I have a question for the board.
Sure.
One is, on any annual report in these policies, is there a checklist like that we would get at the superintendent's office to ensure that we are preparing these annual reports? Is that something, as we're reviewing Neola policies, would we be able to have a listing of all annual policies that are due and be able to put them out month by month and in the regular board meetings to report those out?
Dr. Owen Moore?
So a couple of things. I know that there has commonly been internally an administrative one that keeps track of the board, like item ones that have come up. We do keep a list of like the statutory requirements and when those are due. And I've been working with President Zomber and our team internally to work with your team to work with the chairs of each committee to kind of set up additionally what people would like to see and what those reports need to be. So it does help when there's one already in policy because we went through all of the policies and pulled those from there into a chart that we can look at.
I also have one more question, just because I'm new and I want to know the processes. Also wondering if, in fact, you pass these policies, and this is really part of a regular updating of the policies, and then I understand that this is also part of electronic indexing to get them more accessible to the public as well. If there are changes that the administration wants to bring to a policy, they would then recommend it just to this body, and then that could be reviewed and discussed and vetted with the public appropriately and then passed, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Neola is often great in the fact that they will also review it from a legal standpoint
Yes.
if need be, and then
Okay.
our city attorneys as well. So it's,
Great.
or if you want models from them to see what other districts have done, you can request it anytime.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
And so I guess I don't know if it necessarily has to have the month. I just want to make sure we don't lose that it's a monthly report. But because I don't want to put administration on the spot right now to come up with a month that works best with the school cycle and the SEC cycle, maybe that's something that we would want to work with the designee who oversees the councils to come up with, which month is best to bring it back to the board.
Chair Zomber, I think that if we could organize that with Director Ferguson and the PACE
Okay.
committee, I think that might be a good place to bring those reports back to, if that
Sure.
is something that the board feels is good and a good place for it to be reported out, and then they could do a report to the full board probably from the PACE committee, maybe.
Dr. Owen Moore, would you be able to let Director Ferguson, can you work with him on that? And
Absolutely.
making sure it gets on an agenda?
And looking at it from a policy language perspective, are you thinking of changing the policy language to report to the PACE committee rather than the board in this point G? And then, yeah? So you could,
I think that's
either,
actually a really good idea.
right, you can name that, you could motion tonight to take action to adopt the policy with the language change of PACE committee and a month, Or you could set it aside for a little bit more time to determine when that month might be.
Director Vanoy, you're on PACE, do you think, right? Or no, you're not, you're on SASE, sorry, I should know this. And do we have any PACERs? Okay, yeah, I think that's great to have it report to PACE, actually, I really like that. But we can, so I guess the proposal then would maybe be to hold this over until a conversation with PACE, the PACE chair, and we can discuss it with the PACE chair to see if that's something that would be good for the PACE agenda. Ms. Chambers?
Director Zambor, I just want to clarify, we are still talking about 9141G, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay,
There's
so,
a yearly report to the board on activities of the school engagement councils.
yes, and I just want to clarify because we've now said monthly several times.
Oh,
so
I'm
I
sorry.
Right, I'm just.
Yearly.
Right, I just want to
No,
make
we
sure
don't
we're
want
still saying
yearly.
yearly. Okay.
It's just which month the yearly report
Okay, yes.
comes to the board, so we don't, if we don't put it in there, I don't think it'll happen, to be honest.
So we can hold that one and bring that back with the next packet.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
then-
I'm sorry, Director Vanoy.
But we haven't met yet.
You are on PACE, but you haven't met yet. That's right. Okay.
All right, I think the next one is 9130 on public requests.
Did I set that one aside? That is me,
I don't
okay.
see that.
Okay, I am pulling that up in my notes.
I don't see-
What page is that? Does anyone have the page handy?
Page 5.
Okay. 6.5, public requests or suggestions. Oh, yeah, this one, and I think administration's actually in agreement of holding this one over, just on guidelines for matters regarding classroom instructional material, and the process for reviewing any materials that may be objected to, and just taking some more time on this one with Neola to see if they have any other template suggestions and making sure that the board has some type of role in that process. So I would just ask that we hold this one over for a little bit to give it some more consideration. Okay,
Sounds good.
thank you.
I believe that was our last one on the list.
I
unless-
have one.
Oh, yes, Director Jackson, sorry.
With schools visitors, 9150.
Ooh, that reminds me of one, too.
Great, this is why it's a work session.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Dealing with let's see, parents who are registered as sex offenders and wish to participate in their child school's activities. I think we should do away with that altogether. Reason being the liability of that alone. So myself, just being a protector, I would want to have safety, honestly, to be the escort with this particular person throughout the duration of being in the building. In addition to, we don't know the harm, first off, with so many of our children has already been exposed to different traumas. So to have a person in this building who we have to label in this space, in my opinion, causes disruption more than anything. But even in addition to that, oftentimes we look at outside predators. How do we put checks and balances on our staff as well to follow up, to check in every 2 years, every 3 years that they haven't committed a crime, a sexual offense, and they're not on that registry list?
So, go.
Dr. Owen Moore, do you have a?
I'm wondering if this might be one also to set aside for further discussion with Neola on language around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would agree with setting it. Does anyone object to setting it aside? No? Along those lines, could I also set aside 9800.01 veterans as classroom volunteers aside?
What number?
I think,
Can you say that number one more
yeah,
time?
9800.01. I think it might be the last one in the packet.
Page 39 of 39.
It's way in the back.
veterans as classroom volunteers.
Yeah, and I think it's a great policy to have. I just, adding maybe just something that says related district volunteer policies under whatever that policy number is, shall apply to veteran volunteers, service, or veteran volunteer service in the district, so that we're making sure that people know, just because you're a veteran, you still have to apply through the regular volunteer process, the background check would still apply. We're not waiving the regular volunteer application process.
You could do one of two things with that. You could motion to have that added to it, improve it as such, or you could hold it over and wait for that language to be added there. And
I can propose it if that's okay. I can just, related district volunteer policy shall apply to veteran volunteer service in the district.
got it.
We would add that as maybe an E.
Yes, yes. So we would have to vote on that one.
Okay. Madam Secretary, may you please, oh, sorry, Director O'Halloran.
Okay, so this is super nitpicky, but I don't know that it would be appropriate as E. That paragraph is, the board shall award a certificate of achievement and appreciation to any
you're
military
right.
veteran who meets the following criteria.
We're right.
And if your point is that you want to ensure that everybody understands they have to go through the volunteer process, then I don't think it would be appropriate to nest it under that. I would just maybe,
Add it as a separate item.
yeah, like even if it was just, the board appreciates, veterans stepping up to serve in this capacity and would put them through the volunteer application process or something to that.
Madam Chair, members, there's two policies that pertain to veterans. You might be looking at the one on giving high school diplomas to veterans.
No, I'm looking
Veteran
at
as a
the
classroom volunteer.
veterans as volunteers, and
It's a certificate of achievement that they can get for having 20 hours of volunteer service.
Okay.
You're right, it does have the certificate of achievement. And maybe administration is, or even Neola is looking at this and believes that those policies would apply under this. I just want to make sure that we want to make sure that everyone has to follow the same volunteer practices and application process.
Yeah, I think this policy is more centered around the recognition for that volunteer service. And the volunteer policy would apply to any volunteers, but it could be added in here to clarify that here, just so that there's no question of it. But it wouldn't be E. I think you're right on that. It would probably be up in the beginning paragraph. And volunteers who are approved volunteers for the school are subject to this recognition in some way, like approved volunteers.
Approved volunteers.
Award a certificate of achievement appreciation to any
What if it's the
military.
veteran completes 20 hours of volunteer service in the district under,
according to the district's volunteer policies, or
Mm-hmm.
according to.
should we hold this over?
I would just hold it over.
Okay, let's hold it over.
I feel like we're twisting
Thank you.
ourselves into different shapes, but I just, from my perspective, the way I'm reading it is that this is specific to this certificate of achievement and appreciation. And if there is a perception that could be misconstrued that any veteran is allowed to stroll into a classroom without following the procedures, I think it's good to, clear that up, that, we do still institute procedures. But I don't know if it's even necessary within this policy. I don't know. Maybe I'm, whatever. So yes, can we hold this one over, please, for further?
And it might be a legal counsel question.
Yep.
Okay.
That's why we pay him the big bucks.
Okay, are there any other policies Or do we don't have to take action on that, we'll do that at the end. Any other policies board members wish to set aside? Director Benoit?
I was looking at 9501 charter schools. I don't know if we want to revisit that and look at that in light of it's now 2025.
Is there, okay,
Nothing specific, I just, it's very long, and I'd like to take time to really dig into it.
and
Hold it over, yeah.
I'll add that I was looking at that too, and I think, because I had some questions about, okay, is this redundant? But then I noticed a lot of it is just what's in state statute. But we can hold it over, and then, and two, if there's specific questions you have, you could work with the Office of Board Governance to get clarification from Contracted School Services or Neola, and then, but yeah, we can hold it over. Okay? Any other ones?
No.
Okay. Madam Secretary, may I have or actually, can I have a motion to adopt the balance of the policy recommendations? Director O'Halloran.
I move we adopt the balance of the policy recommendations.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll if we're doing this right.
You are. On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the balance of the policies attached to this item, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Vanoy,
Aye.
and Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
There being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.